Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Send your questions and comments to DJ at ArtistFirst.com, and all shows can be picked up in podcast form at ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, the hosts of the show we are now calling Wise Ones Radio. It's Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Oh, wowee. Well, thank you very much, Squat. But yes, and I am wise one number one. No, I'm wise one number two. Anyway, I'm not wise. If I were wise, I'd shut up by now. I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And welcome.
And welcome to the Soul of Everyman. And tonight's show is going to be an interesting one, I think. We came across a very interesting quote by a gentleman by the name of Tecumseh, and you probably know him from all the snowblowers that he makes today. But Tecumseh, before he started making snowblowers, actually led a rebellion or really a revolution. He was a Shawnee chief. He created an alliance of Indian tribes in the middle of the 19th century, really well before the Civil War. It was actually he passed away at the beginning or right around the beginning of the War of 1812. So he's a long time ago. And the interesting thing about Tecumseh is he was, again, sort of like our friend Napoleon, Nappy, we like to call him. Nappy and Tecumseh are both warriors, and they're both philosophers. And he has this wonderful quote which is expressing his philosophy on how to live your life, and it really is relevant and germane to us today. So we decided that this was a great thing that we could talk about. And what we ended up with was a show about how to live your life.
Right. Now, the warrior philosophy is that's focused and purposeful, as well as when you're in that and you're pretty much fighting for your life. When you are fighting that way, it gives a whole different perspective to what your life is. I think it'd be good if you would read the quote.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, this may or may not be on the website right now, but it's going to be very soon. So I'll just read it straight out. It's, so live your life that the fear of death can never enter your heart. Trouble no one about their religion. Respect others in their view, and demand that they respect yours. Love your life, perfect your life, beautify all things in your life. Seek to make your life long, and its purpose in the service of your people. And prepare a noble death song for the day when you go over the Great Divide. And really, there's so much sort of packed into that. We're actually going to have a two-part show, because we only put half of the quote here because it goes on. And it's really quite profound. But this part, it broke naturally into these two sections, because this part of the quote really does have to do with living your life, and how to live your life. In essence, living a life without regret.
Right. Right. And I like the last part about prepare a noble death song that you will be able to sing when your time to cross over comes.
Exactly. His philosophy is very similar to many warrior philosophies. The American Indians were, of course, um, close to the earth. They lived their lives in harmony with nature. And, there's a lot of these sort of myths of the noble savage and so on, and we've kind of, glorified that whole lifestyle. But in fact, being grounded and being, in touch with and not in competition with your basic nature and with your basic existence lends itself to a life that is lived with purpose. It's a life which, in essence, uh, understands that balance is the key. Balance is the goal. Um, you know, I'll just say this broadly in the modern world, because it's not necessarily only a Western thing now. It's really everywhere. We live in competition with our environment, and it's not that you know. It's not that it's, again, don't want to glorify and idolize this thing. It's not that we're trying to say that we're going to go Yule nibbles and macrobiotic crackers and hugging trees and all that stuff. No, it really comes down to that the rhythms and the flows of the world around you can be ignored and can be fought like a swimmer flailing against the tide, or they can be moved with and ridden and harmonized with, like someone who's swimming, with the flow, or someone who feels themselves carried along by the forces, rather than blindly sort of flailing out against them. And again, with this sort of philosophy here of living your life, not with full knowledge that your life will end someday, and all our lives are going to end someday, and yet not using that knowledge to in any way stand against living your life. The fact, nihilism says, well, life's going to end, and therefore why bother? It's all meaningless anyway. This philosophy really speaks to a life which, however brief it may be, and no one knows how long their life will be, and Tecumseh's was in fact a fairly brief life. He lived to be about 40 or so, died in battle. Life lived in this way, not in fear of death and not in competition with your environment and your world, is its own purpose. It's its own reward.
Right. It's again that first line. So live your life that the fear of death never enter your heart. When you are up against forces that they will come to try to take your life, fear is an automatic response. And to acknowledge that, to understand fear, and not to be dominated by it. And if that fear enters your heart, then you live fear. And it's acknowledging that you do not have to allow this to happen, because you can decide what enters into your heart. So, to first of all acknowledge that the fear of death is real, and it has an influence on you and tries to take center stage in your life. Fears, we are dominated by fears in this world. You're afraid of many, many things. But the fear of death goes right to the core. I believe the phrase is the cold chill that comes when you think of possibility of dying. And to acknowledge that it's there, but not engage in it. Do not let your heart engage in that fear of dying. Very difficult when this is the first time you've ever encountered anything like this. You have, as your life goes on, the experiences bring you to the realization that, death is real. When you're young, that doesn't even cross your mind.
Mm.
But acknowledging, beginning.
Yes, and I think Tecumseh here, to be clear, and what he's really saying is that realization, whether you understand it when you're young or whether you grow to understand it much more fully as you age and you see, you see that life does not continue forever. He really eschews, almost in the very first sentence, as you said, live your life so that the fear of death can never enter your heart. And as you said, you want to become totally aware, but know that as Longfellow said, the purpose of life, the grave, is not the goal. The grave is a certainty, but it is not to be dwelled upon. The whole purpose that and trite as it may sound, the whole purpose is the journey, and how you live it. And this is where we start to talk about the philosophy of is the center part of this quote. The second sentence, which we kind of already went through, but just to go back over it, it's trouble no one about their religion. And if you think about it, take that apart from that, is say, don't spend any part of your life trying to convince others what their beliefs should be. You can certainly lead. You can say, let's bind together, and in fact, Tecumseh was a great leader. Let's bind ourselves together for a common purpose. But the beliefs are below that. If people have beliefs which don't agree with yours, accept that. You say, well, look, we are all individuals. We can join together, and in fact, the efforts of one person can be magnified greatly by joining together. But the purpose of life is not to live in fear, nor is the purpose of life to, in essence, convince others or dictate to others how they should live or how they should believe. That does nothing to add to your song. You certainly can say, here is something that we must all come together and do, but you want their willing agreement. You want to convince them, not dictate to them.
Right. The free will has to be acknowledged. Each person has a free will to make the decision on how they live their life. This is a gift that's been given to us, and it's a foundational part of who we are as humans. If you understand that whenever anything comes by that tries to take away that ability to choose, to make that decision, and to try to force you in a place that you may or may not want to be, there should be an alarm bell going off in your head, because that is manipulation and trying to take power of part of your life. Your life is precious, and your ability to choose is precious. And it's honoring the uniqueness of each individual. Yes, you can point the way, but the best way is to live a life that is something that someone else looks at and says, ah, that's something that I would like in my life. Mm. That is the only true way of being able to teach and encourage another soul. You can't, people like to talk. They come across wonderful concepts and they play with them like small children play with toys. But in order to enact the concept and understand it is an expression of who you are, you must live it. And living it means that your heart's got to embrace it. Mm. And it then becomes more than just a mental construct or a mental concept. It becomes so much more, because now it becomes one of the foundational tenets of what and who you are.
Yeah, before you go too far, I always have to go back because you pack a lot of things into a sentence. But the beginning of your thought there, I was struck that you're saying basically, live your life as an inspiration.
Yes.
And I think that's near the heart, or certainly one of the tent poles of what Tecumseh is saying here. Your life, a life well lived, will inspire, and it will be something that people will look upon and maybe want to follow, or at least maybe want to say that I'll do something different, but I appreciate how purely the example of this other's life that was given to me was lived. The idea of also near the beginning, the idea of troubling someone about their religion. It says, oh, we want to tell them about their religion. No, but really what you're saying is being tyrannical, or really telling somebody what they should believe, rather than being an inspiration, so that your behavior, your acts, your life as observed, from the point of view of whether you lived it in a integral way, becomes something that people would like to emulate. The idea of when you tell somebody your will is subject to mine, your life is not your own. You're bound to me. You have to listen to me. That's the power. That's third chakra. That's power over. And what he's saying here is, eschew all that. Don't center yourself in the power center. Sure, if you live this life, an inspiring life, you may be asked to command. You may be in a position where you are leading a great nation, which is what he ended up doing, was leading a great nation, in essence a futile quest. But yet the idea of seeking that power, of subjugating, is not the goal of your life. The idea is to live your life purely and live your life fully, and accept that your example may inspire others to follow you or to be led by you. So as we take this kind of go into his statement, it obviously has echoes in many of the. He was a highly educated person. He had gone to English schools. He had been exposed to European culture, but he integrated it with his own culture, rather than saying, well, let's throw away the old and take the new. He saw the commonality. It's in essence a really brilliant, sort of natural philosopher, which is very rare.
Well, when he says that his observation of the European culture or the white man's culture was that it was driven by wanting, always wanting something. And so if they keep wanting, then they want to take. And it's understanding that that is the third chakra, where you have power over, or you're under someone's power. And that is the dominant expression of that relationship. You are always wanting more of something, a craving almost. And to understand that as a human being, that is part of your nature, but it shouldn't be indulged.
Right.
It's understanding that you are so much more than just your cravings. And as a warrior, he understood that there's a line in that quote where he says, serving your people. And that is where the compassion comes in, where you realize you are more than just the individual. And if you have any training in the warrior mindset, you also know that self-control and balance is key, because if you have no self-control over yourself, how can you expect to have control or guide others to a purpose or towards a goal? The first step is always the self-control of yourself. Now, that is usually a word that, and discipline also, is also a word that this culture does not like to hear.
You mean our current culture? Yeah, no, we don't like discipline. No.
Yeah.
No, it's almost become it's not a dirty word, but it's certainly a one that people shun. But the other thing that I just want to kind of frame, the reason that he spends a portion of this statement talking about religion is that was the kind of the lash or the kind of huge bone of contention. Again, when you were talking about that, the European culture saw part of its mission was to convert the Indians by force to a particular religion. And all benefits aside, good, bad, whatever, let's say that there was certainly plenty of bloody massacres on both sides, and we're all human and therefore all flawed. But that was a major linchpin in why there was conflict. There was conflict over the land, and there was conflict over beliefs. And his wisdom was to see that both sides had deeply held beliefs, and he's really saying is that don't worry about that you think they're wrong, or that don't spend your life, which many people do, basically trying to be right, and trying to make it so that everyone else has to follow your rules. It's a major stumbling block today, because that's been a major stumbling block for humans throughout history. You figure out what works for you, and that's good. And then you say, well, if it works for me, it should work for every other blessed soul in the universe, and I'm going to make them do it my way. And that's bad and wrong.
Yeah. No, that's getting stuck in power issues. And you have to mature past power issues. But there are many, many who do not want to do that. They want power and control, and refuse to acknowledge that it is their wanting of power and control, that craving for it, that is driving them. They say, well, I have these noble. I'm doing it for the betterment of humanity and these poor souls.
I love that phrase. It's for your own good.
Right. And you sit there and you go, okay, no. You're doing it for your own aggrandizement and the fact that you want to be in control. No.
I would even say one other thing, Mark. I would say that at the original premise of fear, living your life in fear also is a life. The reaction to that is that you want to control.
Well, yes, because the fear drives you so.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And it's really getting to know what that fear is. Most people just run. Okay, and granted, that is the physical programming of the body. Is once you're in fear, you either run or you fight.
Mm.
But to be dispassionate about it and acknowledge that, yes, the fear is here and you're feeling it, and yes, it doesn't feel good, but you're not allowing yourself to be dominated by whether you like it or not. You look at the fear as it is. What is it that this fear is actually about?
Yeah. It reminds me, and this is a little diversion, but I'll just throw it in there, is that we remember we were watching a very interesting program about the mind, and one of the sections was on meditation, and one of the folks who was talking about it was basically a monk who was following the Buddhist tradition of meditation, where his words were that if you have anxiety or you have fear, that you observe it and you make friends with it, and
right.
and that's the way he was putting it was kind of droll, but in essence what you're really saying is that you don't allow the fear to control you. You accept, I'm fearful. I have fear, I have stress, I have anxiety. Hello, stress. Hello, fear. Hello, anxiety. We're going to just get to be friends. And the whole, the kind of operative word of this philosophy was that, yeah, for a period of time, you'll be afraid. And then it will just go away. And things will change. And just observing the fear and controlling your reaction to it is enough.
Right. You're not supposed to engage in it. You sort of make space that it's there, and you look at it and observe what it looks like to you. And as he said, it's like making friends. But it's just, you make space, you understand that this is your reaction, and that's just what it is. But you don't dive into it. Having a reaction doesn't mean that you need to dive head first into it and lose yourself.
Mm.
You are so much more than the reaction that rises up. And that self-control, that balanced point, and the dispassionate viewpoint is worth training.
Mm.
It's one of the things that as a warrior you are trained in, to be able to hold and observe. Your body has the reaction, but eventually when you've done this enough, you become very familiar with your body's reaction to fear.
Yeah.
And you can make adjustments accordingly.
You as a warrior, right? You every warrior acts, and everyone will say this. If you're fighting, you act while afraid and not succumbing to fear. Courage is acting in the face of fear, not that you are fearless. That's called foolhardiness. And I would be foolhardy not to take that wonderful segue and say, let's go back and have a break in the studio, and then we'll come back on the other side and we'll talk more about Tecumseh and snowblowers.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lines is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the fourth Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Hi, this is Minette Lauren, author of Race for the Sun. Do you believe in guardian angels? Check out Book 1 of my Soul Watcher series. It can be found on Amazon.com or anywhere fine books are sold. Go to www.minettelauren.com, and you are listening to the Artist First Radio Network.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on Artist First World Radio. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, D-Man. And yes, tonight's topic is snowblowers, good or bad. That's terrible. Tonight's topic is not snowblowers. If you'd been listening to the first half hour, you would know that tonight's topic is actually really about living your life and living it. You could sum it up in sort of the trite phrase, live your life and live it well. And the philosopher, and you may know him more as the Snowblower King, as I mentioned, but the philosopher were kind of, kind of discussing, at least from his point of view of what thoughts he put down, is Tecumseh, who was really a warrior from the 19th century. And the first part of his quote that we're discussing tonight is germane to us today, and we've already kind of talked a little bit about it. Is that the certainty of death and the certainty of the fear of that is something that can drive people to kind of live a purposeless life. They can live a life of trying to in fear try to control everything. And his take on that was that is a life wasted. And we've been talking a little bit about that his struggle, which he was of course trying to struggle against at that time, the colonization, or sort of the second wave of pushing the Native Americans out of their territories. But that microcosm was was his environment, but his thoughts really come to us, as fresh as though they had just as though he was living with us today. The idea of respect for others, it was central because he could see that that one of the linchpins of this conflict, this human conflict, not just this particular conflict, but the human conflict, is rather than saying in essence, hey, you believe that you should wear your underwear on the outside and I don't, but it's okay. You go right ahead. I'm going to go over here and put my underwear inside my pants, and we're going to agree to disagree, But no, the underwear outside their pants people take up arms and try to force everybody to put their underwear on the outside of their pants. And that's Margaret, I mean, it's funny, but that's a basic driver of human conflict, is that if I believe something and I think it's great, I like to put peanut butter on my socks, and if you don't, I want to kill you unless you put peanut butter on your socks. And that's what Tecumseh and many other philosophers have said is really the germ, the genesis of a lot of human conflict, is just our inability to accept that someone else's crazy beliefs are okay.
Allow room for other people's worlds.
Yeah.
And it was American Indian. We're here to dream the common dream, because that was the belief that this world is a meeting place for all beings that are dreaming singularly in their world, and they're bringing it in. So that also adds to the fact that it's understanding that other people want everybody to have the same dream. You have to have the dream I've dreamed. Okay?
Right. And if you're not dreaming my dream, there's something wrong with you, and I'm going to force you. I'm going to take away your free will and force you to dream my dream.
What I find fascinating, really, is the fact that it is stemming from this wanting of power, craving for power, to the point where it's an addiction. People are craving power to the point of an addiction, and not acknowledging the reason why they're craving power. If they stop for a second and you ask them, why do you want to have that kind of power? They probably, I'm right, or I'm this. Not acknowledging the fact that it's staving off this deep-seated fear that they have, that they're not in control of this world.
Right. Exactly right. Just stop there for a second. That is exactly right. That's the central, that's the driver right there. I would say it again. It's beautifully said.
The fact that you crave power is because you have a deep-seated fear that stems from not being in control of this world. And if you think of it in terms of, this is the place where we're dreaming the common dream, when you were dreaming your own dream, you were in control of your own dream. This is the place where we expand out, and we're supposed to share.
And acknowledge that all of our dreams, while different as we are,
right.
all of our dreams, while different as we are, have to occupy and share this one creation.
Go ahead. It's a melding point, a point where it all can come together. And some people are not acknowledging the fact that there is a natural flow to a human interaction that way. And a lot of the initial part of the quote that we have has to do with the fact that you must respect another person's experience. Experience their world. If you do not respect that and you don't understand it, you try to shove it into what you think it should be. You're not making room for the fact that that person is another unique individual and has unique individual experiences, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the next part, his next thought there, is it exemplifies exactly what you just said. We're going through this quote of Tecumseh's, which is going to be up on the website, and you guys should definitely review it. So now, you haven't done your homework, it's okay. But he says, love your life. And I want to say, these are encapsulated thoughts. It's love your life. Perfect your life. Beautify all things in your life. So the idea right there, those three phrases really are saying that despite, or rather, we are all living and dreaming the common dream, but your job is to perfect you, not to perfect your neighbor. It goes back to the old biblical, the speck in your brother's eye. First remove the log in yours. Well, in other words, first concentrate on you. You're not perfect there, George. And you got a lot of problems. And your fears and your anxieties are not to be assuaged by forcing others to bend to your will so that you feel better. Your fears and anxieties are something that you have to deal with yourself. You have to say, yes, I have a fear of death. I have a fear of many things. But they all come down to this fear of death. I have fear of not having control. We talked about it in the first half hour. You have to become friends with those anxieties, friends with those fears, and realize that those are not what life is. That is a small portion of life that if you want to, you can make it very large, and you can make it very terrible, and you can live your life in fear. Rather, the right way to do it is, as Tecumseh says and as the Buddhists say, is, yes, love your life, all of it, the fearful parts, the bad parts, the good parts, the parts where you aren't in control and parts where you are in control, and don't obsess over the parts that you don't like. In fact, don't even sit there and say, I don't like this part. Just say, love your life, the whole thing, and attempt to perfect it. Seek perfection. You're never going to get there, but attempt to perfect it. Beautify all things in your life, which means not other people. Don't beautify the people in your life. That's their job. First of all, they're ugly and smelly. Leave them alone. But beautify the things, your works, the things that you put your hand to, the things that you will take an image of and paint or talk about. Beautify those things. But those are things that you do, things that you can interact with. Things, not people. Remember, things are different from people. Remember that? Things are different from people.
Yeah, this is true. When you beautify your life, you can start from the perspective where you can see the beauty in your life. And even if there are ugly things there, they have a place. And putting it into a broad perspective allows for a foundation for you to begin that process of bringing beauty to your life. Acknowledging that life itself is an amazing thing. It is, at its core, beautiful.
Yes.
And sweet. And there is nothing like it in this world.
Nope.
We sit and we begin to compare, that's the idea of comparing your life to somebody else's life. What else is social media but this, comparative religion almost,
Oh, man. Social media is comparative religion. New topic.
Yes.
Go ahead.
We'll do that another time.
Another day.
But when you realize that it really doesn't matter what anybody else does, as long as you, in yourself, understand and appreciate the life that you are, how valuable your life actually is. Don't go into comparisons, because immediately you want to say, well, this is more important than something else. What if everything that you are involved in, no matter how small you may think it is, what if everything is important?
And it is. He talks here about, again, we're going to kind of going through this, but he says, seek to make your life long and its purpose in the service of your people. And we just stop there for a minute, and people say, well, I don't want to serve anybody. They're terrible. Well, yes, that's true. They are terrible, and we shouldn't serve them. But no, the idea of a purposeful life is encapsulated here. This is a very pithy statement, and you have to kind of take it apart and look at it. What is the purpose of making your life long if it's so terrible and you have to fight everybody all the time? No, first you beautify your life. First you try to perfect it. You try to make yourself the best you can be, and then you want to live that life. And there will be troubles, and there will be heartache, and there will be loss, and there will be joy, and there will be a fulfillment, and there will be great accomplishment. All those things are part of the whole life that you're living and loving, and you want to make it long. And you want to, and you will find, whether you found it or not, but the greatest rewards in life are when you are of service to others and to yourself. To be told you must serve is slavery, but to volunteer because you want to do something for another is the greatest freedom and the greatest joy. You have the ability to decide how you want to spend your limited time. You seek to make your life long because you want to have as much of what little you do get, and none of us get enough, but you don't dwell on that. You don't dwell on the fact that life is short or will end. You say, I'll try to make the most of that whole experience.
And that is one of the keys of being able to live fully, is being in that present moment. To understand that if you just care about the present moment and embracing that being present, not worrying about what was going on here or planning, I'm going to be doing this so that, I'm going to take a picture over here and I put it up on my post. That looks wonderful.
Right.
Let me fix this over here. Or I should have done this. That would have made a better picture.
Right.
It's like, right now, where are you? You know where you are. Are you living this moment? Or are you always thinking about it in, how can I preserve it? Because the minute you think, how can I preserve this, you're out of the moment.
Right.
You're not living.
Go ahead, sorry.
You are not living in that moment of now. You are thinking about how to gussy it up so that it would be appealing to whoever it may be.
Right. And living instead of in the now, you're living in someone else's future, or in your regrets in your past. Neither one brings life. They both waste your time, waste your energy, and take you out of the actual experience of who you are and who what your life is in the moment. You see it all the time. People who literally, they're in a beautiful spot, whatever it is, and all they're doing are taking pictures of it. So, if they take the phone away from them and just say, would you just look at it and breathe the air and think nothing of where you're going to be with this, how you have to tell this one and that one. You see people all the time, Margaret, all the time taking pictures of their food. Like, just eat the darn food. I don't care. you have chicken cacciatore or whatever. I mean, just
That's funny.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And what would Tecumseh say? He said, just eat the damn food.
Are you
Enjoy it.
enjoying
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
that, if you think, I'm going to go back to a statement I said before. What happens if you realize that what you think is unimportant actually is the most important thing in your life, or not even thing, but important in life? And what is important in life is the experience of it, not the record of it, not its display, but being in life. And that means, if you didn't, just bear with me on this. Your soul, which is a burning point of light in this time and space, and it burns according to the life time that you are living in, the timeline that you are traveling through. And it burns according to that timeline. And that is the record that is being kept in your soul. What happens when you enter into that and you decide that, well, I've got to take a picture to memorialize this? You're not burning anymore. You've basically dimmed your light, if you get completely involved in the mental machinations of making your camera work. You've lost that burning point. Your whole life is to be a burning point within this timeline. And it is forever recorded in your soul. And the only way it cannot be recorded is we don't experience life.
Exactly. I think, I'm not sure how many shows ago you talked about the, I'm going to say this wrong, so you're going to have to correct me, the Eternity Bank, thing. Remember,
Yes.
No, but the experience of life doesn't have to be recorded. In fact, it is being recorded, but not by you, because you are the actor in the play. You're not the observer. You're not there to think what will happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday. You're there in the moment to be in the moment.
Right.
And when we're in that moment, in the beginning we talked about, not fighting against the flows of life and being close to being grounded, being close to yourself, being close to life. In the moment you're so with the flow of life in the moment that you don't notice at all that time is passing, or that you are one with that experience. And, in the very last part of Tecumseh's statement, he does start to talk about death. He says, but the thing he says about it is all the things that you're doing, all the life that you're experiencing, each burning moment is in essence preparing what he calls the noble death song for the day when you do go over the Great Divide, because that's when you get to look back at it, when it's over.
Right.
And you get to, the life review, the near-death experience, the life review is don't have a death song that you go over and say, man, I really missed everything. I missed out on it all. I need a new life to figure this out again. No, it's over, and you missed it.
Yeah, can you imagine that your death song is a whine?
A whine. I want to do this over. This is terrible. It's somebody else's fault. I want a do-over. Sorry. But that's the problem, Margaret, is that if you do, waste the precious moment, and you get some number of them, whatever it is, 86,000 seconds or it doesn't matter. You get one. Each precious moment wasted is a regret that you can never get that moment back. Don't pile up that kind of death song. Don't sit there in your NDE life review and somebody says, well, basically you spent 75 years listening to elevator music and worrying about your taxes. you're just, that was pretty stupid. Yeah, don't be that. Don't. Know when the moment is here, only in the sense that you're living it. Don't say, well, the moment's coming, I'm going to get ready. No, just live it. You're going to, the anxiety's here, I better be fearful. No, just make friends with it, and it will be there, and it will go away. I think we said it before, too, is the only thing you can count on is that these moments will go away. They will change. And if you don't live the ones you have right now, you'll never get to the ones that you say are going to be better. The living of life is its own purpose and reward.
Mm-hmm. Well, if this is what it takes, in other words, that you don't embrace the idea that I'm going to have regrets, because inevitably when you're doing something like this, you're going, oh well, how about all the time I wasted when I didn't realize it was. You can get super mental on yourself.
Right. You can regret regretting.
Right.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Just understand that every moment is precious. Every moment. And you can initiate right at this point. Like.
Right. You haven't wasted anything. Start now.
Yeah.
Now. Just start now.
To understand that in your heart of hearts, your heart is, and how do I even say this? Your heart embraces what is here. And it doesn't matter to it if your mental aspect is saying this is significant and this isn't. This little thing kind of, no.
Right.
To be present in the moment and to do all things with awareness, conscious awareness of it, that is an amazing feat to accomplish whenever you happen to accomplish it. I believe it's the monk that you were talking about was John Kabat-Zinn, and
right.
He does those awareness exercises because he himself had been very fearful when he was young, and his father was the one who guided him to need practice meditation in order to begin to become aware of what this is. So,
well, and I think this moment, the moment that we're talking about here is the most precious one. You honor life's moments because realizing that each one is as precious as any other one. Don't judge that this one's not, and this one's not, and this one's not, and then that one will be. Oh, that one. Oh, and in fact, judging the moment is not being in the moment. And I think we've come to the moment of nearly the end of the program. But I'll say this is a 2-part episode. This was part 1. You can study it, and there will be a test. And then part 2 next week, we'll talk about the second half of Tecumseh's snowblower epilogue, and where really he talks about, now we talked about life, and he's going to talk about death. But anyway, this has been The Soul of the Everyman. Live your life. I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.